I had an amazing life with my wife. When I was 21 years old and she was 23, we first met in a church and began dating. After 2 years of dating, we were prepared in God's eyes to get married. We waited till marriage to live in together or share a bed before that. She was a skilled chef who even brought me prepared meals while we were dating, so I was positive she was an angel. She demonstrated her ability to be a conventional wife who respected her husband. She wrote a book since she was such a fantastic example of a Christian wife and mother. It was excellent, and our family church and hometown were major hubs for her advertising. She made contact with a Christian publishing house that agreed with her and her values. We were together all the time, and I was quite supportive of her unforeseen writing career. We enjoyed a wonderful and calm marriage for 3 years. She was my pillar of support. I adored how she managed to write her second book and perform well as a wife. She was off on her first book tour before any of us knew it. I opened her suitcase in the morning while she slept when she got back home. A stack of garments dropped a copy of her book. She had signed it to someone named Rye with a kind note and her phone number. And I saw this when I picked it up. I was completely perplexed. Why would she still be wearing the book mixed up with her clothes, and why would she do this? I asked her about it after waking her up. Despite feeling confused and alarmed, she dismissed it as a tired annoyance. She questioned why I was looking through her belongings. I discovered this and told her I just wanted to help her unload. She stated coolly that it was for Rye, a woman who had lunched with her and adored her book. My wife was going to return it to her because she had unintentionally left it on the table when she left. This was not as it sounded. How could she have left the book without my wife seeing and intervening? I pointed out that if she was a woman, the spelling was probably wrong. It wasn't fair for me to presume my wife was lying, so she asked me what I meant when I said that. She insisted she was being truthful when I questioned her again if she was telling the truth. When she saw how angry I was, she began to look really worried. She stood up, kissed my neck, and gave me a lengthy hug before avowing that I was the only man she would ever need and that our life together had just begun. I felt a little worried and perplexed when I left the room. A few days later, I saw her talking on the phone through the living room window when I arrived home from work. Spinning her hair and bouncing her crossed legs, she was resting on the couch. She was laughing heartily, biting her lip, and beaming from ear to ear. I had no idea who she talked to in that way, but she looked so cute. She must have hung up on the person when I walked in, since she immediately hung up the phone and greeted me like nothing out of the ordinary. I asked her during dinner who she was on the phone with. She gave me a start when I noticed her, but she soon and openly acknowledged that it was Rye the woman. I wanted to see what number it was on her phone and try to give it a call. That evening, my spouse placed her phone beneath her pillow for the first time, reasoning that it would make it simpler for her to hear her alarm. Right then, I considered asking for her phone, but I must admit that I began to doubt my abilities. She was usually a social butterfly, so I wasn't sure whether she was up to anything unusual. She wasn't cheating on me just because she was talking to someone, or several others. I didn't start anything that night since I was so tired and wanted to go to bed. She informed me the following morning that she would be arriving home later than usual since she had an appointment with Tracy, her publishing agent. Given that she was writing a second book, this made sense. She read a portion of it to me when I inquired how it was doing. She gave me the address of the publishing company when I asked where they would be getting together. When I told her that I believed they were closed for repairs, she responded that Tracy could only see her at that time. Thus, she was leaving late. I mentioned that I didn't enjoy it when she wasn't home when I was off work, and I asked why they couldn't get together another day. My spouse became irate and expressed her dislike for the feeling of mistrust she had been experiencing lately before turning to leave. She said that I should stop it. My wife had never spoken anything like that to me before until that moment. After work, I drove to the publishing office and saw that there were no cars in the parking lot. For a while, I drove about aimlessly and kept contacting my wife. I felt cheated and really lost. Once home, I made an effort to keep awake so I could wait for her, but at 1 in the morning, I passed out. It surprises me that when my wife arrived home, I remained asleep. She simply crept into our bedroom and turned in. The following morning, I discovered her napping. There was no delayed Easy Pass notification when I checked my phone. I felt vibrations when my wife drove the turnpike, but she never did so unless it was to advance her writing profession. She informed me every time. She was obviously having an affair by now, but I wanted to expose her so she would have to stop lying to me. It seemed like an eternity to me that I had to wait for her to actually take her phone away. I could tell that she was talking to someone, even if she didn't make it clear that she was texting. She spilt a beverage and went to get a towel, which is why she eventually broke her bond with her phone. I took her phone and entered the restroom. As soon as I could, I hid a tracking program in her phone's utilities section and installed it. I just prayed that this would work, because I didn't have time to search through her phone. I overheard her question aloud where her phone had disappeared. I made the decision to use the house phone as a diversion. I hurried out of the restroom and tucked her phone between the couch cushions when she went to answer it. She was completely clueless. A week later, when I arrived home from work, she told me she was spending the night in Lancaster because she was attending a book signing the next day, which was hours away. The Easy Pass charges make sense for that town. I feigned not to mind, but I knew that I would follow her. I had to cancel because she was going to leave when I was at work. Anyhow, I was too busy to concentrate on my work since I thought my wife was cheating. To find out more about my wife's book signing, I gave Tracy a call. She assured me that there wouldn't be another book signing for some months, which alarmed me. She stated they wouldn't be collaborating with my wife to promote her book. If that was the case, when I informed her, I thought she was cheating on me. After she got off the exit, I missed her for a little while, but I was able to find her using the tracking software. She was staying at an inn. While I parked, I observed her as she unloaded her bags. Another automobile arrived in less than 10 minutes. A man knocked on her door after getting out with flowers. She gave a squealing response. She flung her arms around his neck and gave him a deep kiss since she was so excited. His hands felt her body and her private areas right away. I leapt from the vehicle and ran towards them. My wife made a highly worried noise that I had never heard her make before when they turned to look at me after hearing me. She asked me what I was doing in there first. What was he doing here? I questioned her. I wanted to punch him when he asked me who I was. When I shouted that I was her husband, he began to back off. Raising his arms, he headed for his automobile. After he called, my wife gave me the expression that said I had just broken her heart. She began to stutter. Although she was the one who was caught, she still wanted to be angry with me. I accused her of being unfaithful to me and of squandering our lives together and our relationship for some unknown man who had read her book. I realized that this was the worst time in my life and that it was just the beginning as I began to walk away. In an attempt to get me to talk to her, my wife trailed after me. I encouraged her to put her focus on attempting to salvage her job. I had nothing else to say. There in the parking lot, I left her. She repeatedly attempted to text and contact me while I was canceling the bank card she was using to access my bank account. I was aware that she relied on that for both her car payment and Easy Pass. On my way home, I made a stop to get new door locks. The following day, she appeared and attempted to use her key. She tried to slide open the glass door by stomping about the backyard, but it didn't work. Her credit was non-existent, thus her name wasn't on the mortgage. I was determined to make sure she paid the price for betraying me and squandering years of my life. I shouted through the glass door that she was unworthy of a spouse, a house, or anything. She made eye contact and stood there trying to summon me a dozen times. I took a swig of my coffee. I was pleased with myself. She was trying so hard to be sweet, but I think she realized that I might call the police on her at any time and have her taken from my property. She stood at the rear door and left voicemails. When she told me she loved me, I turned to leave. She began to sob and scream. When I returned 30 minutes later, she was still there. She pleaded with me via the back door not to tell the church or her parents what she'd done. She didn't want people to know that her infidelity cost her both her marriage and her career. She pleaded with me to allow her to try again for a few days to make up for her actions. I made fun of her. After cheating on their spouse, there is nothing that, can be done to make things right. You just choose not to. I called her parents while she was sitting there. As she realized she had nothing and no power, she hammered on the glass in fury. Her book career had already come to an abrupt end, and her reputation was about to be shot in the church and in her family. After discussing her actions with her parents, she presumably drove off in an attempt to refute the truth or request a place to remain. In any case, she returned in 2 hours, packing her luggage and placing her clothes on the porch as though she intended to sleep there. She was told to leave when I phoned the police. She had a tantrum, but escaped being taken into custody. She is still looking for stability in her life to this day. She consistently moves between dubious and suspicious circumstances, depending on her extremely bad decisions. Her family, book, marriage, and Christian life are all things of the past. Her life now is very different from what it was. Let's go on to the second tale now. I had been dating my wife for 14 years, 9 of which were spent as a married couple. When we did eventually tie the knot, I knew it was the right choice. Before popping the question, I waited a long time to make sure she was a decent lady who genuinely desired a long-term commitment. These days, a lot of women are unsure of their desires. They say they want a husband and a marriage, but after they become accustomed to that, they get bored and decide otherwise. My spousey disproved my assertion. Throughout the 5 years before my proposal and for a few years after our marriage, she remained faithful to me. She supported me throughout my father's passing and all the other times I found it difficult to go forward. I was in college to pursue a career in surgery, which was not an easy one. My mind was constantly racing with medical jargon and everything I needed to remember. So I trusted her to look after me. I was so preoccupied with my job on the day she wasn't home or available to assist me that I neglected to eat and felt disoriented. She was the kind of lady a man makes his wife. She was my rock in tranquility. I saved money for a year after I started working as a surgeon before purchasing a mansion for us. I'm just expressing the truth. I don't like to brag. My wife had a lifelong partner. Her partner cherished her above all else and decided to give her his life, fortune, and prosperity. She stuck by me during the times I was too busy and tired to offer her extra attention. So I knew she loved me. Making up for it, I took her out every week to the hottest places in town, where we ate, danced, raced go-karts, and did anything she wanted. We visited beaches, parties, concerts, festivals, you name it. We eventually purchased a yacht and began throwing events on it. My wife was obviously enjoying this. She created a few social media profiles that were later exalted. Although I didn't particularly enjoy it, I didn't think I could tell her to stop. It's a common tale, and she found it to be rather enjoyable. I wasn't privy to everything she posted because I didn't have any accounts. It was enjoyable, and she shared a lot of pictures and videos of us together. I believed that the life we had together was the greatest life I could have imagined. My spouse established herself as a well-to-do, outgoing, gorgeous woman who is interesting to get to know. Every time we had a party, the number of attendees increased. My lack of vacation time meant that I wasn't very invested in any of these people on an emotional level. My wife and my work took up much of my energy. My wife stayed at home while I went to work. Every day she updated me on her activities with a selfie that she gave me. I received a weird text at work about the time I began to realize I didn't want us to host parties anymore. Many strangers who knew me before they did sent me random messages. Still, this was horrible news. It said that while I was at work, my wife was having fun with guests on the yacht. It was hours later that I saw this message. My wife calmly answered the phone when I immediately contacted her. When I told her about the text, she seemed perplexed. She promised that she would never leave the yacht without me. She had never given me any reason to question her, so I wanted to believe her. The fact that a stranger was attempting to cast doubt on her honesty in front of her spouse infuriated and annoyed her. I went to the yacht the following morning before work to snap a photo of the gas gauge. I saw that the garbage bin was empty as well. My wife texted me while I was in my office to let me know that she had spoken to the person who had texted me and that everything had been settled up. She claimed that this woman was envious of our lifestyle and connection. It took her some time to respond when I inquired how she obtained the number. She looked at my phone to obtain the number before she eventually revealed that she had not been able to get any sleep the night before. She refused to disclose me the woman's name when I questioned her. She simply assured me that I will inevitably run against detractors and not to worry about it. I ignored it for the time being and just answered to ask her not to throw a party that weekend. I wanted to be alone with her. I didn't feel like doing it. She never responded to my message. I checked the yacht's gas gauge on the way home. It was notably less. I became aware of this and began to prowl around the yacht. I discovered an unfamiliar button beneath a cushion. I smelled an unknown cologne as I lay on the bed. I searched for another half hour or so before checking in the trash bin. I discovered a ton of used paper towels and napkins there. I returned home ready to present my wife with the proof that she must have had company when she took the yacht out without me. She insisted on knowing why I didn't want to throw a party that weekend before I could say anything further. I questioned her about why she felt the need to throw another party this weekend. She simply looked at me as if I were foolish before posing the question, "Why wouldn't we?" I told her I noticed the shift in the gas gauge because I was starting to become irritated. She asked me how I knew it was different, seeming shocked. I informed her that I had checked it before leaving for work. She lost it on me. She even went so far as to compile evidence against me, since she couldn't believe I didn't trust her. I informed her that I was entitled to look into my boat and wife for any indications of dishonesty. She scoffed, saying that since she wasn't on the boat that day, she didn't see why I believed the gas was less. I mentioned the items in the garbage container at that point. She refused to look at me and was really ashamed. She raised her hand in disgust and turned to go like a snobbish supermodel. She began cooking meals on Saturday morning in anticipation of hosting a party aboard the yacht. Reminding her that I wanted to spend quality time with her at home, I asked her not to have a party this weekend. She stated I could stay home if I didn't want to go, but I couldn't make her stay home because it was equally her boat and mine. This definitely got on my nerves. I told her I missed the fair and considerate wife she used to be, and that she wasn't being that anymore. As her expression softened, she said that all she wanted was to enjoy herself and her friends on the yacht. She grew close to me during my time off, massaging my chest, as if I could use it as cover to spy on my wife and her friends. I gave in. This was just an inquiry on the boat, but I wanted her to think I was going to have fun. She spoke with a great deal of people, but primarily men. The men on the boat only wanted to find the next girl to play with. The ladies only wanted to find the man who would worship them the way they felt they deserved. I was getting impatient because the conversation seemed to be going nowhere. When I thought about marriage, this was not what I had imagined. I had assumed that my wife and I would be the only ones, but she has since made the decision to hang out with other people. She attempted to claim that she was friends with both men and women, but I could see very otherwise. She appeared to be focused on one man in particular. I went over to them and said hello. He appeared very harmless, just an ordinary guy going about his regular business, but his scent was the same as the mysterious fragrance on the bed below deck. A well-hidden camera pointed at the bed was mounted on the boat the following morning before I left for work. It was linked to one of my phone's apps. I was also able to talk over the webcam. When I looked at the live feed following my surgery, I was shocked, despite my suspicions. I saw my lovely wife making love to the same stench-filled male. I stared in fear for a few seconds before using the camera to express my thoughts. Both of them leapt, fumbled for cover, and peered about. They needed 9 minutes to locate the camera. My wife became so enraged that she searched for a wrench and began hitting the camera. That's the lady she turned into. A monster who was entitled, self-centered, and thoughtless, and did not want to take responsibility for her acts. The footage of her being caught that I uploaded online received hundreds of millions more views than her glorified accounts. Her accounts were linked to the video, and the controversy gained widespread attention. She gained notoriety as the boat-partying, bankrupt doctor's wife. She received nothing from the divorce since we had a prenuptial agreement. She never planned to do what she did, in my opinion. She was poisoned to the point that she was unable to carry out her duties as a faithful wife by being misled and preoccupied with the approval and attention of men who were not her husband. She had no idea what to do with herself when her reputation was destroyed and she had nothing left. She made a valiant effort, but was unable to capitalize on her notoriety for financial gain. In the end, she took a bad job and rented a room in order to get by without me.